The full moon rose in the sky over the peaceful town of Blackwood, nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains. It was a night like any other, or so the townspeople thought, until they began to hear the howls. A shiver ran down Sarah Thompson's spine as she locked herself in her wooden cabin. The howls grew closer, filling the air with an impending sense of danger. She had heard the stories, the legends of the night wolf that haunted Blackwood during the full moon nights, but she had never believed them until now. It was a dark and windy night, and the creaking of tree branches and the howling of the wind seemed to echo the distant howls. Sarah closed the windows and curtains, feeling vulnerable in her solitary cabin in the woods. She reached for her cell phone, but there was no signal in these remote mountains. As Sarah tried to calm herself, she heard stealthy footsteps outside her cabin. Her heart raced, and she clutched a kitchen knife as if it were her only hope. The footsteps drew nearer, and with a sigh of relief, Sarah saw the figure of her brother, John, through the window. She quickly opened the door and let him in. "Have you heard those howls, Sarah?" John asked, panting from his run to the cabin. "Yes. They're terrifying." "What's going on?" Sarah replied, tears in her eyes. John looked outside, nervous. "They say it's the night wolf, the werewolf that prowls these mountains on full moon nights. Mom used to tell us stories about him to scare us as kids, but I never imagined that." The howls grew louder and closer. Both siblings looked at each other in fear, sensing that something terrible was approaching. They decided to barricade themselves in the cabin and wait until morning brought the light of day. As the night wore on, the howls merged with the sound of breaking branches and heavy footsteps. Seconds felt like hours, and fear consumed them. Every shadow passing by the window made them jump. Finally, at dawn, the howls ceased, and calm returned to Blackwood once more. Sarah and John cautiously ventured outside, fearing what they might find. What they saw left them breathless. The town lay in ruins. Houses were destroyed, doors torn from their hinges, and there were bloodstains everywhere. The howls had been more than just terrifying sounds, they had been a prelude to a massacre. Sarah and John searched among the wreckage for survivors, but found no one else. The Blackwood community had been decimated by the night wolf. The full moon had unleashed its murderous rage. They decided to flee the town and seek help in the nearest city. As they walked along the winding path that would lead them out of the mountains, they heard one last distant howl. They stopped and looked back, fearing what they would see. A gigantic figure emerged from the trees, with dark fur and blood-red eyes that gleamed in the moonlight. It was the night wolf, the terror of Blackwood. It was closing in on them with a hungry look in its eyes that spelled death. Sarah and John ran like they had never run before, with the night wolf chasing them at full speed. Every time they glanced back, they saw its terrifying figure getting closer. Finally, after a desperate race, they reached the city and alerted the authorities about what had happened in Blackwood. But when they returned with help, the town had vanished, as if it had never existed. The authorities didn't know what to think. There was no evidence that Blackwood had ever existed in the first place. The siblings were questioned over and over, but no one believed them. The night wolf and its massacre seemed to have been swallowed by the shadows of the night. Sarah and John, desperate to find answers, returned to the Appalachian Mountains in search of clues. For days, they explored the forests, but all they found was a deep sense of unease that haunted them. They knew that the night wolf was still lurking, waiting somewhere in the shadows. One night, while exploring a remote area of the forest, they heard the howls again. They were the same howls that had terrorized Blackwood. The siblings exchanged nervous glances, aware that they had fallen into the night wolf's trap once again. Following the howls, they arrived at a dense grove where the full moon filtered through the leaves. That's when they saw it, standing in the middle of the clearing, the night wolf in all its ferocity. The night wolf was an imposing and terrifying creature. Its blood-red eyes shone with malevolent intelligence as it looked at the siblings. Sarah and John felt trapped, with no way out. But before the night wolf could attack, an old man with a long white beard emerged from the shadows. He wore a necklace made of wolf teeth and held a staff carved with ancient runes. He was the guardian of the mountains, a protector of the land who had witnessed the suffering caused by the night wolf for generations. The old man began reciting an ancient spell as the night wolf growled and backed away. The full moon began to fade, and the creature transformed into a man, naked and wounded. He was a man trapped in the curse of the night wolf. The guardian of the mountains explained that the night wolf was actually a resident of the town of Blackwood who had been cursed centuries ago for his thirst for power. Only on full moon nights did he become the beast that terrorized the town. With the guardian's spell, the curse was broken, and the man was set free. He lamented the atrocities he had committed as the night wolf and promised to help rebuild the town he had destroyed. Sarah and John returned to the city with the liberated man, and finally, the authorities began to believe their story. Blackwood was rebuilt and the community flourished once again, although the legend of the night wolf never completely faded away. The lesson learned in the Appalachian Mountains was that sometimes, evil can hide in the deepest shadows, but it can also be defeated by the bravery and determination of those willing to confront it. The night wolf became a warning of the dangers of greed and the thirst for power, a warning that would resonate in the mountains for generations to come.